I've been in the field of teaching for civil services and other competitive exams for more than 10 years. Now this session will go for the analysis of the UPSC 2021 CSAT paper, the verbal part. And if you just noticed, this time all the questions were on logical reasoning. We didn't find any long passage in the paper this time. All were logical reasoning questions, like a paragraph followed by a single question. In the case of logical reasoning, there are different types of questions, and every type has got its own approach. So our task is to identify which type of question it is, and then move accordingly. That's what we need to do actually. Last year, we had many passages, in fact. Long passages were there. That means a long passage followed by 3 or 4 questions. That's how the paper was the last year. But this year, it's like logical reasoning. Like questions were not based on long passages. As I said, as you know, a short passage, a short paragraph followed by a single question. That's how the questions appeared this time, right? We'll go for the discussion part. We'll go question by question. Come to this one. I'll read the paragraph. Then we'll see which type of question it is, and we'll move on to the options. Come to the paragraph. Researchers simulated street lighting on artificial grassland plots containing pea aphids, sap-sucking insects at night. These were exposed to 2 different types of light, hyphen. Now hyphen is termed as an apposition, colon, hyphen, semicolon, brackets. Now these are termed as appositions, apposition, apposition. Now what comes after an apposition explains what comes before it. There's a rule regarding appositions, right? These punctuation marks, colon, semicolon, hyphen, brackets. They were exposed to 2 different types of light, and which those 2 different types of light are is given after the apposition, the hyphen. A white light similar to newer commercial LED lights, that's one, and an amber light similar to sodium street lamps, that's the other one, the 2 types of light. The low intensity amber light was shown to inhibit rather than induce flowering in the wild plant of the pea family, which is a source of food for the pea aphids in grasslands. The number of aphids was also significantly suppressed under the light treatment due to the limited amount of food available. Now here, due to is a cause and effect indicator. You should connect a reason and a result. It must always be a positive reason and a positive result, or a negative reason and a negative result. The last part says, the last sentence of the paragraph says, the number of aphids was also significantly suppressed under the light treatment. Due to, so this is the result in fact, the reason is due to the limited amount of food available. Now here, in the paragraph, we find mention about animals and plants. Insects are talked about, plants are talked about, right? I'll read the question. Which one of the following statements best reflects the most critical inference that can be made from the passage given above? This is an inferential question. As I said, in the case of logical reasoning, there are different types of questions. So we need to identify which type of question it is, and accordingly we need to move on to the options. This is an inferential question. Now, what is the inference? What can be concluded from the paragraph? What can be deduced from the paragraph? What is implied in the paragraph? What is a corollary in the paragraph? What is true according to the paragraph? All these mean the same. So in the case of such a question, inferential question, our task is to find out an option that is given there in the paragraph. That means no detail in any option or no piece of information in any option must go beyond the paragraph, must go outside the paragraph. We have to find out an option, or we have to go for an option or select an option that is there in the paragraph, right? Now some concepts are there like general, specific, comparative, superlative, some concepts that need to be followed in the case of an inferential question. Anyway, I'll tell you the reasons for elimination. Come to option A. Low intensity light has more adverse effect on the plants as compared to high intensity light. Now we have a comparison brought about in option A. It says, low intensity light has more adverse effect. This is a comparison. So we have a comparison brought about in option A. Now the rule says, or the way of approach is this, if there is a comparison brought about in an option, the same type of comparison or same comparison must be brought about, must be there in the paragraph. That means if two entities are getting compared in the option, the same two entities must get compared in the paragraph. If there's a comparative degree adjective in the option, there must be one in the paragraph. Nowhere in the paragraph we find such a comparison. Such a comparison, the comparison given in option A, is not there in the paragraph. So based on that, option A is eliminated. Come to option B. Light pollution can have a permanent adverse impact on an ecosystem. Now here, the light treatment is talked about in the paragraph. Now, as I said, no detail in any option must go beyond the paragraph. B says, light pollution can have a permanent adverse impact on an ecosystem. Now, the adverse effect is talked about in the paragraph, but it doesn't mean that it is a permanent adverse effect. From nowhere in the paragraph, we can go for a conclusion or the inference that says that light pollution can have a permanent adverse impact on an ecosystem. This cannot be agreed to when we compared it to with the paragraph, so option B is also eliminated. Come to option C. White light is better for the flowering of plants as compared to the light of other colors. Better is also a comparative degree adjective. We have a comparison brought about in option C. Nowhere in the paragraph we find or we come across such a comparison. Based on that, option C is also eliminated. The reason that I gave for option A, the same reason I give for option C as well. In options A and C, we have a comparison brought about, but such comparisons are not there in the paragraph. C is also eliminated. Come to option D. Proper intensity of light in an ecosystem is important not only for plants, but for animals too. Not only, but also. It's a support indicator. It says, proper intensity of light in an ecosystem is important not only for plants, but also for animals. The impact of the light treatment or how light is important for plants and animals are talked about in the paragraph. So D contains mention about details that find mention in the paragraph. This is an inferential question. The answer to this question must be option D. As I said, in the case of an inferential question, if we ask to find out what is the inferential paragraph, what can be concluded from the paragraph, we need to go for an option that finds mention in the paragraph. Clear? Come to the next question. We'll read the paragraph. Anyway, in fact, if you just read the question, you can get to know like which type it is and what approach we need to go for in the case of such a question, in the case of that particular question. Anyway, I'll go for the paragraph. Come to the paragraph. Approximately 80% of all flowering plant species are pollinated by animals, including birds and mammals, but the main pollinators are insects. Pollination is responsible for providing us with a wide variety of food as well as many plant-derived medicines. This part of the paragraph is positively charged. Pollination is responsible for providing us with a wide variety of food as well as many plant-derived medicines. At least 1/3 of the world's agricultural crops depend upon pollination. Now we need to understand the meaning of the paragraph and the charge of the paragraph. It means whether the paragraph is positively charged or negatively charged. Bees are the most dominant taxa when it comes to pollination, and they are crucial to more than 400 crops. Pollination is an essential service that is a result of intricate relationships between plants and animals, and the reduction or loss of either affects the survival of both. Effective pollination requires resources such as refuges of pristine natural vegetation. Come to the question. On the basis, the whole paragraph talks about pollination, right? The question, on the basis of the passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. This is an assumption question. Now, in the case of an assumption question, now we can expect two types of assumption questions. One is, the question may ask us to assume based on a particular topic. The other one is, the question doesn't ask us to assume based on any particular topic. If the question asks us to assume based on a specific topic, we need to go to the exact sentence where the topic is mentioned. It will be mentioned only in one sentence. We need to go to the exact sentence where the topic is mentioned, and we have to assume based only on that sentence. That means our assumption must be based only on that sentence. In the option that we go for as the answer to an assumption question, if the topic is mentioned, in the option, there must be a mention about that sentence. A mention about that sentence must be there in that option. And some piece of information must go beyond the paragraph. And the piece of information that goes beyond the paragraph becomes our assumption. There's a difference between inferential and assumption. In the case of inferential, our task is to find out an option is there in the paragraph. In the case of assumption, the option that we go for, there must be mention about the sentence that talks about the topic of the question, and some piece of information must go beyond the paragraph. Now sometimes, the question doesn't ask us to assume based on any specific topic. The same thing here. On the basis of the passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. So here the question doesn't ask us to assume based on a particular topic. In the case of such a question, we have to assume based on the last sentence given in the paragraph. That means our assumption must be based on the last sentence. So in the option, there must be a mention about the last sentence, and some detail must go beyond the paragraph, right? Now come to option 1. Sustainable production of India's cereal food grains is impossible without the diversity of pollinating animals. I'll read the last sentence of the passage once again. Now here, I say, in a way, in a paragraph there will be a flow of ideas. The first sentence moves to the second to the third to the fourth. We need to understand the flow of ideas in the paragraph. Sustainable production of India's cereal food grains is impossible without the diversity of pollinating animals. Now, in the last sentence, effective pollination requires resources such as refuges of pristine natural vegetation. In option 1, we don't find mention about the details or any part of the details given there in the last sentence. One should not be considered as an answer to this question because it should contain mention about the last sentence, in fact. One can be eliminated. Based on that, options A and C are gone. Now we have two options left, B and D. Now it is very clear that there is no need for us to discuss 3 and 4 now, because B and D contain mention about 3 and 4. Come to option 2. Monoculture of horticultural crops hampers the survival of insects. This also doesn't contain mention about the details talked about in the last sentence. This also should not be considered as an answer to this question. 2 is also eliminated. I say the answer must be option D. Now come to 3. We got the answer still. Come to 3. Pollinators become scarce in cultivated areas devoid of natural vegetation. This is what statement 3 says, option 3 says. I'll read the last sentence of the paragraph once again. Effective pollination requires resources such as refuges of pristine natural vegetation. 3 says, pollinators become scarce in cultivated areas devoid of natural vegetation. This part of the option is not talked about in the paragraph. This finds mention in the last sentence. So option 3 contains mention about the details given in the last sentence, and some piece of information goes beyond the paragraph as well. 3 must be considered. Based on that, anyway, option B is gone. We have only one option left. The answer must be option D. Now sometimes we may be able to agree to all the 4 options, but we need to go for the best option. The other times we may not be able to agree to any of the 4 options, still we need to go for the best option, right? Come to D, statement 4. Diversity in insects induces diversity of plants. Now in a way, we should not agree to statement 4 in a way, right? But among the 4 given options, statement 3 must be considered, because 3 contains mention about the last sentence. As 3 is considered, A and C eliminated. 2 should not be considered because 2 is nowhere related to the last sentence. So 2 is eliminated. 4 is anyway mentioned in B and D. So to B is gone. The answer must be option D. So among the given options, go for the best option. That's the only thing. This is an assumption question. The first one was an inferential one. This is an assumption one. Got it? Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. A study conducted on the impacts of climate change over the Kaveri Basin of Tamil Nadu using regional climate models showed an increasing trend for maximum and minimum temperatures and a decrease in the number of rainy days. These climatic shifts, if a sentence says these books, immediately before it, there must be or there will be a sentence containing mention about some books. Only then we can say these books. The same way here. These climatic shifts refers to the climatic shifts talked about in the above sentence. These climatic shifts will have an impact on the hydrological cycles in the region, lead to more runoff and less recharge, and affect the groundwater tables. These are the three effects of these climatic shifts. One is they'll have an impact on the hydrological cycles in the region. That's the first one. The second one, lead to more runoff and less recharge. The third one, affect the groundwater table. So these are three impacts or effects of the climatic shifts. Further, there has been an increase in the frequency of droughts in the state. This has driven farmers to increase dependency on groundwater resources to secure their crops. Now, the whole passage talks about climate change, right? I'll read the question. Which one of the following statements best reflects the crux of the passage given above? I say that this is a main idea question, right? Now I said it is important that we identify the type of question. This is a main idea question. What is the main idea of the passage? What is the crux of the passage? Subject matter of the passage? Theme of the passage? Essence of the passage? Primary purpose of the passage? What is the author discussing primarily? Or what is a passage about? All these mean the same. Type of passage, all these mean the same. Main idea question. Now the way to approach a main idea question is this. Now the topic on which most number of details are given by the author is the main idea of the passage. So we need to understand the topic being explained by the author in the passage. I repeat, the topic on which most number of details are provided by the author. That topic is a main idea. We need to identify the topic and then see which option contains mention about that topic, right? The details that we go for must be there in the paragraph. This is a main idea question, and as you know, the whole paragraph talks about climate change. I'll read the options. A says, development of regional climate models helps in choosing climate-smart agricultural practices. B says, heavy dependence on groundwater resources can be reduced by adopting dry land cropping systems. C says, climate changes increase the criticality of water resources while simultaneously threatening it. D says, climate changes cause the farmers to adopt unsustainable livelihoods and risk cropping strategies. Now here, the paragraph talks about climate change and its impacts as well. It means what are the impacts or effects of climate change? That's what the whole passage is about. Come to option A once again. Development of regional climate models helps in choosing climate-smart agricultural practices. This is not being talked about, explained in the paragraph. This is not being talked about, explained in the paragraph by the author. Option A can be eliminated. Our task is to find out the topic on which most number of details are given. Come to B. Heavy dependence on groundwater resources can be reduced by adopting dry land cropping systems. This is also not being explained or described by the author in the passage. B is also eliminated. Come to option C. Climate changes increase the criticality of water resources while simultaneously threatening it. The impact of climate change is given there in the paragraph. The mention about how climate change affects groundwater tables is talked about in the paragraph. And it says, further, there has been an increase in the frequency of droughts in the state. So whole passage or the passage talks about or explains to us the impact of climate change on water resources, and that's exactly what C says. Climate changes increase the criticality of water resources while simultaneously threatening. Droughts may happen. It affects groundwater tables as well. So impact of climate change on water resources is talked about, explained by the author. C must be considered. Leave it there. We have one more option to discuss. Climate change causes the farmers to adopt unsustainable livelihoods and risk coping strategies. The impact of climate change on farmers is not the idea being described by the author in the passage. Now, the three impacts of climate shifts, we don't find mention about this, in fact. So this cannot be considered as a main idea or the crux of the passage. Eliminated. The answer to this question must be option C. How climate change or the shift in climate affects water resources. So this is a main idea question. Identify a topic on which most number of details are given there in the paragraph, or a topic being described or explained by the author in the paragraph. That is the main idea or the crux of the passage. Got it? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Researchers were able to use stem cells to gauge the neurotoxic effects of the environmental pollutant bisphenol, whatever it is, I don't know exactly what it is. They used a combination of biochemical and cell-based assays to examine the gene expression profile during the differentiation of mouse embryonic stem cells upon treatment with BPA, a compound known to cause heart disease, diabetics, and developmental abnormality in humans. So this compound, BPA, differentiation of mouse embryonic stem cells upon treatment with BPA, a compound known to cause heart diseases, means this one causes heart diseases, diabetics, and developmental abnormalities in humans. They were able to detect and measure BPA toxicity towards the proper specification of primary germ layers, such as is an example, such as, like, similarly, as an example, for instance, all these mean the same. In fact, an example cannot be taken as an idea. An example always supports the statement that comes immediately before it. I'll read the last one once again, the last statement. They were able to detect and measure BPA toxicity towards the proper specification of primary germ layers, such as, that means these are the primary germ layers, endoderm and ectoderm, and the establishment of neural progenitor cells. I'll read the question. On the basis of the passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. This is also an assumption-based question. I told you the way to approach an assumption question. Come to statement 1. BPA may alter embryonic development in vivo. Now here, I said the last sentence is an example. Right? The last sentence is an example. An example always supports a statement that comes immediately before it. So I don't consider the last sentence here. I'm focusing on the statement coming immediately before it. That means the statement that starts with, the sentence that starts with, they used. This one. This one comes immediately before the example. They used a combination of biochemical and cell-based assays to examine the gene expression profile during the differentiation of mouse embryonic stem cells upon treatment with BPA, a compound known to cause heart disease, diabetics, and developmental abnormalities in humans. Now, as I told you, in the option that we go for, there must be mention about the sentence in the paragraph, and some piece of information must go beyond the paragraph. Come to statement 1. BPA may alter embryonic development in vivo. Now, assumptions can be facts as well as doubts. May and might are for doubt, will and would are for fact. In the paragraph, if it is a fact, an assumption can be a fact as well as a doubt. Similarly, in the paragraph, if it is a doubt, assumption can be a doubt as well as a fact. So assumptions can be facts as well as doubts. Embryonic development is talked about in the sentence that comes immediately before the example. In option 1 also we find mention about embryonic development. So there is a mention about that sentence. BPA may alter embryonic development in vivo. This is not talked about in the paragraph. So this is what we can assume from the sentence given in the paragraph. So in option 1, in statement 1, we have mentioned about the sentence in the paragraph, and some piece of information goes beyond the paragraph. It is a doubt, completely fine. If I replace may with will, BPA will alter embryonic development in vivo, this is also completely fine. Will and would offer fact, may and might offer doubt. As I told you, facts, assumptions can be facts as well as doubts. One should be considered. Based on that, option B is eliminated. B doesn't contain mention about 1. Come to statement 2. Biochemical and cell-based assays are useful in finding out treatments for pollution-induced diseases. No, statement 2 doesn't contain mention about the details talked about in this sentence. I said in the option that we go for, there must be mention about that sentence. 2 doesn't contain mention about the details given there in that sentence. 2 is eliminated. Based on that, option A is gone. Option D is gone. Anyways, B is anyway eliminated. The answer must be option C. Come to statement 3. Embryonic stem cells could serve as a model to evaluate the physiological effects of environmental pollutants. Embryonic stem cells is a part of the information or details given in that sentence. So in statement 3, we have mentioned about that sentence. Could serve as a model to evaluate the physiological effects of environmental pollutants. This part of the option, they could serve as a model to evaluate the physiological effects of environmental pollutants. This part of the option is not talked about in the paragraph. So in statement 3, we have mentioned about that sentence. Some piece of information goes beyond the paragraph. 3 also must be considered. The answer to this question must be option C. The same approach that we have gone for in the previous question as well. I mean the one regarding assumption that we discussed earlier. Getting it? Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. Fig trees are considered sacred in India, East Asia and Africa, and are common in agricultural and urban landscapes where other large trees are absent. In natural forests, fig trees provide food for wildlife when other resources are scarce and support a high density and diversity of frugivorous fruit-eating animals. If frugivorous birds and bats continue to visit fig trees located in sites with high human disturbance, sacred fig trees may promote frugivore abundance. May promote is a doubt. Under favorable microclimate, plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. This is also an assumption question. I'll read the question. On the basis of the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. The same approach. No change in the way of approach, the same way of approach. Come to 1. Now, in fact, the whole paragraph talks about fig trees, right? I'll read the last sentence once again. Under favorable microclimate, plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. Come to 1. Fig trees can often, it talks about fig trees. Anyway, we have mentioned about the content of the paragraph. Yes. Fig trees can often be keystone species in natural forests. The last sentence says, under favorable microclimate, plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. This is what the last sentence tells us. Come to statement 1 once again. Fig trees can often be keystone species in natural forests. This can be assumed from the last sentence because plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. So we can assume that fig trees can often be the keystone species in natural forests because many other species grow around fig trees. This can be assumed from what is given there in the last sentence. This is not given there in the last sentence. This is what we can assume from the last sentence. 1 is completely fine. Based on that, B is eliminated, C is also eliminated. Now we have two options left, A and D. Now we have to discuss 2, 3 and 4. Come to 2. Fig trees can grow where other large woody species cannot grow. This in a way contradicts the last sentence in fact. The last sentence says plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. 2 says, it's in a way it's positive, right? 2 says, not in a way, it is positive. 2 says, fig trees can grow where other large woody species cannot grow. Our assumption must be based on the content of the paragraph. We have to assume based on the details given there in the paragraph. This is no way based on the details given in the paragraph. 2 is eliminated. Based on that, A is also gone. The answer must be option D, 1, 3 and 4 only. There's no need for discuss 3 and 4. Still we'll go for those. Come to 3. Sacred trees can have a role in biodiversity. Sacred trees can have a role in biodiversity conservation. If you have any doubt, don't get stuck with any option. We have only one option left. Leave it. Come to 4. Fig trees have a role in the seed dispersal of other tree species. This is also based on the details given in the last sentence. And we can assume that fig trees have a role in the seed dispersal. The only thing that is said is plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. From this, we can assume that fig trees have a role in the seed dispersal of other tree species. Fig trees have a role in the seed dispersal of other tree species is not given in the last sentence. This is what we can assume from the last sentence. As plenty of seedlings of other tree species grow around fig trees, we can assume that fig trees have a role to play in the seed dispersal of other tree species, completely based on the last sentence, the details given in the last sentence. This part of the option goes beyond the paragraph as well. This is what we can assume from the last sentence. 4 is anyway completely fine. The answer must be option D. Now I cannot agree to statement 3 completely, but we have no other option left. 2 anyway cannot be agreed to because in a way it's contradicting. 3 says sacred trees can have a role in biodiversity conservation. In a way we can go for it from the last sentence, but I don't completely agree with it. But the answer must be option D. Got it? 1, 3 and 4 only. Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. At the heart of agroecology is the idea that agroecosystems should mimic the biodiversity levels and functioning of natural ecosystems. Such agricultural mimics, like their natural modes, can be productive, pest resistant, nutrient conserving, and resilient to shocks and stresses. In ecosystems, there is no waste nutrients. Nutrients are recycled indefinitely. So as nutrients are recycled indefinitely, there's nothing like waste. Agroecology aims at closing nutrient loops, that is, returning all nutrients that come out of the soil back to the soil, such as, this is an example. Back to the soil, such as through application of farmyard manure. Right? This is like an example provided by the author. Agroecological practices include integrating trees with the livestock and crops. Consider the following: cover crops, fertigation, hydroponics, mixed farming, polyculture, vertical farming. I'll read the question. Which of the above farming, we have 5 in number, right? 6 in number. Which of the above farming practices can be compatible with agroecology as implied by the passage? Now, come to 1. Cover crops can be agreed to from what is given there in the paragraph. Fertigation cannot be agreed to as the details there in the paragraph, because the question says, which of the following can be compatible with agroecology as implied by the paragraph? Cover crops can be agreed to based on the details given in the paragraph. Fertigation cannot be agreed to. Hydroponics, so one must be considered based on that. Options B and D are eliminated. Now we have two options left, A and C. A says 1, 4 and 5. C says 1, 2, 3 and 6. Come to 2. Fertigation cannot be agreed to. 2 is eliminated. Anyway, based on that, C is gone. Yeah, C is gone. Yeah, C is gone. We have one option left. So D, 1 is correct, no? The last option was 4 and 6. Cover crops must be agreed to. So D is eliminated. B is eliminated. Fertigation should not be agreed to as per the paragraph. 2 must be eliminated. So C is gone. The answer must be option A. Hydroponics cannot be agreed to based on the details there in the paragraph. Eliminated. Mixed farming must be agreed to. 4 is completely fine. Polyculture can be agreed to. Vertical farming is nowhere a part of the paragraph. This is anyway gone. So 6 is eliminated. The answer must be option A. 1, 4 and 5. Cover crops, mixed farming and polyculture can be agreed to based on what is there in the paragraph, and these are compatible with agroecology as there in the paragraph. The answer must be option A. Here we do not have any kind of options or something, just words. Just find out whether these meanings can be gained from the paragraph. Means the paragraph implies or tells us about these or not. Only 1, 4 and 5 can be agreed to based on the details there in the paragraph. The answer must be option A. Now once we eliminate an option, means like if one is eliminated, we can see how many options can be eliminated. And if you don't, and you should not get stuck with any option. If you find any difficulty dealing with an option or getting to know whether it is correct or not, just leave it and move on to the next one. Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. Computers increasingly deal not just with abstract data like credit card details and databases. Example. So credit card details and databases can be termed as abstract data. Examples of abstract data. Computers increasingly deal not just with abstract data like credit card details and databases, but also with the real world of physical objects and vulnerable human bodies. So computers deal with these two. A modern car is a computer on wheels, semicolon, it's an apposition. An aeroplane is a computer on wings. The arrival of the Internet of Things will see computers baked into everything from road signs and MRI scanners to prosthetics and insulin pumps. There is little evidence that, now little evidence means no evidence. A little evidence means some evidence. Little evidence means no evidence. There is little evidence that these gadgets means what I mentioned in the above sentence. There is no evidence that these gadgets will be any more trustworthy than their desktop counterparts. Hackers have already proved that they can take remote control of internet connected cars and pacemakers. I mean, it's not at all safe. Come to the question. Which one of the following statements best reflects the most critical inference that can be made from the passage above? This is an inferential question. No detail in any option must go beyond the paragraph. The option that we select as the answer must be given there in the paragraph. Come to 1. Computers are not completely safe. We have examples and details given there in the paragraph to state this one. Computers are not completely safe. Because it says, there is little evidence that these gadgets will be any more trustworthy. There is no evidence that these gadgets are trustworthy. That means these gadgets cannot be termed as trustworthy. The reason is also given there. Hackers have already proved that they can take remote control of internet connected cars and pacemakers. That means computers are not completely safe, because hackers can do whatever it is, even though computer plays a major role in that. Hackers can still hack that. Computers are not completely safe. This is a piece of information that is given there in the paragraph. Inferential question must be considered. Leave it there. Come to B. Companies producing the software do not take cyber security seriously. Companies not taking cyber security seriously is not a part of the given paragraph. As in no detail, any option must go outside the paragraph or beyond the paragraph. This is not a part of the details there in the paragraph. This is an inferential question. B is eliminated. Come to C. Stringent data security laws are needed. This can be termed as an assumption. From the details given in the paragraph, you can assume that strict data security laws are needed. This information is not given there in the paragraph. This is what we can assume from the paragraph. And from the last sentence also. Hackers, they hack it. So we need stringent data security laws. This can be assumed from the paragraph, cannot be inferred from the paragraph. C is eliminated. Come to Delhi. The present trend of communication technologies will affect our lives in the future. This talk completely goes beyond the paragraph. Eliminated. Inferential question. The answer to this one must be option A. Computers are not completely safe. Fine. Understand which type of question and then move on to the options. Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. A social and physical environment riddled with poverty, inequalities, unhygienic and insanitary conditions generates the risk of infectious diseases. Hygiene has different levels. Colon is called an apposition. So what those different levels are is given after the apposition. Hygiene has different levels. Personal, domestic and community hygiene. These are three different levels as per the paragraph. There is no doubt that personal cleanliness brings down the rate of infectious diseases. That means the meaning of this sentence is personal cleanliness brings down the rate of infectious diseases. But is a contrast indicator. Now here, the word but, however, yet, on the other hand, these are called contrast indicators. They always tell us about a change, a transition from one to the other, from positive to negative or from negative to positive. But the entry of the market into this domain has created a false sense of security that gets conditioned and reinforced by the onslaught of advertisements. What comes before the contrast indicator but is positive? There's no doubt that personal cleanliness brings down the rate of infectious diseases positive. What comes after the contrast indicator is negative. Experience in Western Europe shows that along with personal hygiene, general improvements in environmental conditions and components like clean water, sanitation and good security have brought down infant or child death or infection rates considerably. So these have brought down child death rates or infection rates considerably. I mean, it has contributed a lot to bringing down the child death rates or infection rates. The obsession with hand hygiene also brings in the persisting influence of the market on personal health, overriding or marginalizing the negative impact of ecology and the emergence of resistant germs. I'll read the question because I need to read the last sentence once again, because the question is an assumption one. On the basis of the passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. Now, as I told you, we have to assume based on the last sentence given in the paragraph. In the option, there must be mention about that sentence and some detail must go beyond. I'll read the last sentence once again now. The obsession with hand hygiene also brings in, also is a support indicator. It must connect either two positive ideas or two negative ideas. The idea before also is positive. brought down child death rates considerably, positive. So the idea after the support indicator also must also be positive. The obsession with hand hygiene also brings in the persisting influence of the market on personal health, positive. Overriding or marginalizing the negative impact, overriding the negative impact is again positive. Overriding the negative impact on ecology and the emergence of resistant germs, this is the last sentence given in the paragraph. Come to statement 1. Now, this sentence is positively charged, right? Statement 1. People who are obsessed with personal hygiene tend to ignore the community hygiene. This is negatively charged. The last sentence is positive, so what we assume from it must also be positive. So 1 is eliminated. Based on that, options A and D are gone. Because A and D contain mention about 1. Eliminated. Come to statement 2. Emergence of multi-drug resistant germs can be prevented by personal cleanliness. This does not find mention, or this does not talk about the last sentence given in the paragraph. Emergence of multi-drug resistant germs can be prevented by personal cleanliness. Now here, mention about germs is there in the last sentence. I'll read the last sentence, the last part. Overriding or marginalizing the negative impact on ecology and the emergence of resistant germs. That means it overrides the emergence or the negative impact of resistant germs. 2 says, emergence of multi-drug resistant germs can be prevented by personal cleanliness. Now, in a way, it must be considered, in a way it must be considered because it talks about resistant germs. Leave it there, don't get stuck. Come to statement 3. Entry of the market in the domain of hygiene increases the risk of infectious diseases. Statement 3 is negatively charged. The last sentence is positively charged. 3 is eliminated. Based on that, option B is gone. Now we have 2 options left. 1 is eliminated, right? Now we have 2 options left, C and D. C says 4 and 5. D says 1, 2 and 4. 1 should not be agreed to, so 1 is eliminated. The answer must be option C. Even though we have a doubt regarding 2, this one 3 should never be agreed to. Based on that, option B is eliminated. 1 is anyway gone, so option D is gone. Now we have only 2 options left, 2 statements left, 4 and 5. We'll just see whether 4 and 5 contain mention about the details talked about in the last sentence. Come to statement 4. Scientific, means like it's an assumption one, a bit of some piece of information must go beyond the paragraph. Scientific and micro level interventions are not sufficient to bring down scientific and micro level interventions are not sufficient to bring down the burden of infectious diseases. Now, according to the paragraph, what is required? Personal hygiene plays a major role in bringing down the emergence of resistant germs, according to the last sentence. Scientific and micro level interventions are not sufficient to bring down the burden of infectious diseases. The meaning of this sentence is that what is required to bring down the burden of infectious diseases is giving importance to personal cleanliness. So 4 in a way talks about the last sentence. Leave it there. Come to 5. It is community hygiene implemented through public health measures that is really effective in the battle against infectious diseases. This also contains mention about the last part of the paragraph, bringing down the death rates, and it talks about overriding the negative impact on ecology. 5 must be agreed to. So in a way, even though 4 cannot be agreed to completely, 5 should be agreed to. The answer must be option 5. So 1, 2 and 3, 1 and 3 are anyway gone because they are negatively charged. So A is eliminated, D is eliminated, B is eliminated. The only option left is option C. Even though we cannot agree completely to statement 4, 5 must be agreed to. 5 contains mention about some information that goes beyond the paragraph as well. The answer must be option C, 4 and 5. As I said, sometimes we may not be able to agree to any of the 4 options, still go for the best option. Because our task is just to get the qualifying marks. So if you find any difficulty dealing with any question, you may just leave it and move on to the next one. Fine, so 5 must be agreed to, so here the answer must be option C. Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. India faces a challenging immediate future in energy and climate policy making. The problems are multiple, and which those problems are is given after the colon, the apposition. Sputtering fossil fuel production capabilities, limited access to electricity and modern cooking fuel for the poorest, rising fuel imports in an unstable global energy context, continued electricity pricing and governance challenges leading to its costly deficits or surplus supply, and not least, growing environmental contestation around land, water and air. So many problems are talked about here. But all is not bleak. But is a contrast indicator. Before the contrast indicator but, we have mentioned about many problems, right? Now we have a transition here in the paragraph. But all is not bleak. Again, we have an apposition. Growing energy efficiency programs, positively charged after the contrast indicator. Integrated urbanization and transport policy discussions, positively charged. Inroads to enhancing energy access and security, positively charged, and is a support indicator. Bold renewable energy initiatives, even if not fully conceptualized, suggest the promise of transformation. This part of the paragraph, the first part is negative, it talked about many problems, and the second part of the paragraph is positive. I'll read the question. Which of the following statements best reflects the critical message conveyed by the passage above? This is a question based on a message. If it is a question based on a message, a suggestion or a piece of advice, if it's a question based on a message, a suggestion or a piece of advice, we need to focus on the last part of the paragraph. Because in the last part of the paragraph, the author will convey his message, give his advice, put forward his suggestion. Right? So if it is a question based on any of these three, the option that we go for must be based on the last part of the paragraph. And the answer to such a question will be positively charged. Because the message conveyed by the author, the advice given by the author, the suggestion put forward by the author will be positively charged. If you just noticed, the last part of this paragraph is positive. The first part was negative. We have a contrast indicator here. The first part is negative. We have a contrast indicator. And what comes after the contrast indicator, this part of the passage, in fact the last part, is positively charged. Come to statement 1. India's energy decision-making process is even more complex and interconnected. Option A is negatively charged. A is eliminated. Come to B. India's energy and climate policy. In fact, the passage talks about India's energy and climate policy. In fact, we have mentioned about that in all the options. Mentioned about these two in all the options. India's energy and climate policy. India's energy and climate policy is heavily turned to sustainable development goals. B is positively charged, must be considered. And it finds mention in the last part as well. I'll read the last part. Inroads to enhancing energy access and security and bold renewable energy initiatives. Bold renewable energy initiatives, even if not fully conceptualized, suggest the promise of transformation, undoubtedly positively charged. Come to B once again. India's energy and climate policy is heavily turned to sustainable development goals. B must be considered. Leave it there, don't get stuck. Come to 3. India's energy and climate actions are not compatible with its broader social, economic, and environmental goals. Negatively charged. Option C is also eliminated. Come to D. India's energy decision-making process straightforward, supply-oriented, and ignores the demand side. This does not find mention in the last part of the paragraph. We have to go for an option that finds mention in the last part of the paragraph. D doesn't find mention there in the last part. D is eliminated. The answer to this question must be B. Fine. So we need to approach a question based on a message, a suggestion, or a piece of advice. Getting it? Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. There are reports that some of the antibiotics sold in the market are fed to poultry and other livestock as growth promoters. Overusing these substances means what is mentioned in the above sentence. Overusing these substances can create superbugs, pathogens that are resistant to multiple drugs and could be passed along humans. Mindful of that, some farming companies have stopped using the drugs to make chickens gain weight faster. Since Denmark banned antibiotic promoters in the 1990s, the major pork exporter says it is producing more pigs and the animals get fewer diseases. I'll read the question. Which of the following statements best reflects the critical message conveyed by the given passage? The same type, the same approach. We need to focus on the last part of the passage, and in fact it will be positively charged, as I said. I'll read the last sentence once again. Since Denmark banned antibiotic growth promoters in the 1990s, the major pork exporter says it is producing more pigs and the animals get fewer diseases. This part of the passage is positively charged, right? Animals get fewer diseases because they stopped using those antibiotics now. Come to one. People should avoid consuming the products of animal farming. This is no way a part of the details given there in the paragraph. From the passage, the author is not advising or giving us a message that, or telling us that people should avoid consuming the products of animal farming. This is no way based on the paragraph. In fact, A is eliminated. Come to B. Foods of animal origin should be replaced with foods of plant origin. This is also not talked about in the paragraph. The author is not telling us that we should replace foods of animal origin with foods of plant origin. This is also not talked about. The only thing talked about in the paragraph is that antibiotics and means like those substances, overusage of those substances must be avoided. That's the only thing the author is telling us in the paragraph. And the same thing happened in Denmark, and as a result of that, animals are getting fewer diseases. That's the only thing the author tells us. He's not asking us to stop consuming foods of animal origin. B is anyway gone, nowhere related to the passage. Come to C. Using antibiotics on animals should be banned. Option C is anyway positively charged because it says using antibiotics should be banned. C is positively charged because of double negation. Double negation means when two negative terms come together, the meaning becomes positive. Using antibiotics, negative. Banned is negative. Banning a negative action, negative and negative is positive. Using antibiotics in animals should be banned. This is what, in fact, the whole passage tells us. And this is the idea in the last part of the passage as well. The major pork exporter says it is producing more pigs and the animals are getting fewer diseases because they are not using antibiotics on animals. C must be considered. And it's very much related to the paragraph as well. It talks about using antibiotics on animals. And the author is telling us that the usage of antibiotics on animals or using antibiotics on animals must be stopped. Leave it. Come to D. Antibiotics should only be used to treat diseases. This is a very general statement actually. We're not talking about using antibiotics to treat diseases. We're talking about overusing antibiotics on animals. That is what the passage is telling us. D is gone. The answer must be option C. Got it? Come to the next one. And one more thing. In option D, we find mention about the word only. Right? If the word only is there in the option, the word only must be there in the sentence that talks about the option. All we need is just eliminate it. Right? So D is anyway gone, nowhere related. The answer must be option C. Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. Policymakers and media have placed the blame for skyrocketing food prices on a variety of factors. So, policymakers and media have placed a blame for skyrocketing food price on a variety of factors, and some factors are mentioned here, including high fuel prices, bad weather in key food producing countries, and the diversion of land to non-food production. Increased emphasis, however, is a contrast indicator. Increased emphasis, however, has been placed on a surge in demand for food from the most populous emerging economies. It seems highly probable that mass consumption in these countries could be well poised to create a food crisis. Now, I'll read the question. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. This is an assumption question. And as the question doesn't ask us to assume based on any specific topic, we need to assume based on the last sentence given in the paragraph. I'll read the last sentence once again. It seems highly probable that mass consumption in these countries could be well poised to create a food crisis. Come to one. Oil producing countries are one of the reasons for high food prices. This is not based on the details given in the last sentence. In the option, there must be mention about the last sentence, and some detail must go beyond the paragraph. What is there in option 1 is not a part of what is there in the last sentence. 1 should not be considered. Assumption question. A is eliminated. C is also eliminated. Come to 2. If there is a food crisis in the world in the near future, it will be in the emerging economies. Come to the last sentence once again. It seems highly probable that mass consumption in these countries could be well poised to create a food crisis. 2 says, if there is a food crisis. Now, food crisis is talked about in option 2 and the last sentence. If there is a food crisis in the world in the near future, it will be in the emerging economies. This part of the option cannot be assumed from the details given in the last sentence actually. And emerging economies, what is talked about emerging economies is there in the last but one sentence. I'll just read that part. Has been placed on a surge in demand for food from the most populous emerging countries. It seems highly probable that mass consumption in these countries could be well poised to create a food crisis. If there is a food crisis in the near future, it will be in the emerging economies. This part of the option is not there in the paragraph, but this cannot be assumed from the last sentence given in the paragraph. Our assumption must be based on the details there in the paragraph. So 2 also should not be agreed to. C is eliminated. B is gone. Now answer must be option D. Neither 1 nor 2. Neither of these 2 statements can be assumed from what is in the last sentence of the paragraph. Got it? The next one. I'll read the paragraph. Her central message of modern development economics is importance of income growth, by which is meant growth in gross domestic product, that's GDP. In theory, rising GDP creates employment investment opportunities. As incomes grow in a country where the level of GDP was once low, households, communities, and governments are increasingly able to set aside some funds for the production of things that make for a good life. Today, GDP has assumed such a significant place in the development lexicon that if someone mentions economic growth, we know they mean growth in GDP. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. This is also an assumption-based question, right? Now, come to 1. I'll read the last sentence once again. Today, GDP has assumed such a significant place in the development lexicon that if someone mentions economic growth, we know they mean growth in GDP. If someone mentions economic growth, we know that it means growth in GDP. Now come to the first option. Which of the above assumptions is or valid or can be assumed, which of the following can be assumed from the paragraph? Rising GDP is essential for a country to be a developed country. Now, as I told you, we have to assume based on the details given in the paragraph or given the last part of the paragraph. The last part says if someone mentions economic growth, it means they mean growth in GDP. Rising GDP is essential for a country to be a developed country. This cannot be assumed from from the details given in the last sentence, in fact. So 1 is eliminated. And one more thing, rising GDP and growth in GDP can be in a way the same, but this part cannot be, this piece of information cannot be assumed from the details given in the last sentence. 1 should not be agreed to, so A and C are eliminated. Number 2, rising GDP guarantees a reasonable distribution of income to all households. This also cannot be assumed from what is there in the last sentence of this paragraph. 2 is also gone, the answer must be option D, neither 1 nor 2. And if the question doesn't ask us to assume based on a particular topic, we have to assume based on the information or the details mentioned in the last sentence. A and B don't talk about the details in the last sentence, so these 2 should not be considered. The answer must be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Fine. Come to the next question. I'll read the question, I'll read the paragraph. With respect to what are called denominations of religion, if everyone is left to be judge of his own religion, there is no such thing as religion that is wrong. If everyone judges his own religion, there's nothing like a religion is wrong. But, contrast indicator, if they are to be a judge of each other's religion, there is no such thing as a religion that is right. If a person judges his own religion, there's nothing like a religion is wrong. But if a person judges another person's religion, there's something like a religion is a religion. There's nothing like no religion. There's nothing like a religion is right. And therefore, all the world is right or all the world is wrong in the matter of religion. Therefore, is a cause and effect indicator. It must connect a reason and a result. The result here is all the world is right or all the world is wrong in the matter of religion. If a person judges his own religion, there's nothing like a religion is wrong. If a person judges another person's religion, there's nothing like a religion is right. So we can conclude that there is nothing right. All the world is right or all the world is wrong when it comes to religion. This is what the paragraph tells us. What is the most logical assumption that can be made from the passage given above? And if you just notice, this paragraph is in fact a single sentence. Now every sentence ends with a full stop. This paragraph is a single sentence. It's a long sentence. It starts with, hence with religion. We have an apposition here, semicolon. That means like connecting 2 ideas without ending the sentence. So we have to assume based on the whole statement, right? Come to option A. No man can live without adhering to some religious denomination. This is not at all a part of the details given in the paragraph. I repeat, we have to assume based on the content of the paragraph. Option A is eliminated. Come to B. It is a duty of everyone to propagate one's religious denomination. The paragraph does not tell us that it is a responsibility of a person to propagate his or her own religious denomination. B is also eliminated, not a part of the details in the paragraph. Come to C. Religious denominations tend to ignore the unity of man. D. Men do not understand their own religious denomination. D, anyway, should not be agreed to, because men do not understand their own religious denomination is contradicting words in the paragraph. If a person judges his own religion, there's nothing like religion is wrong. Men do not understand their own religious denomination contradicts the details given in the paragraph. D is eliminated. Now come to C once again. Religious denominations tend to ignore the unity of man. Yes, when it comes to religion, there's no unity. Because when a person judges another person's religion, there's nothing like religion is right. So there's no unity when it comes to religious denominations. C is what can be assumed from the paragraph. We can assume that religious denominations, the passage talks about religious denominations, we have mentioned about the content of the paragraph, tend to ignore the unity of man. This is what can be assumed from the paragraph. As a person does not accept another person's religion, we can assume that there is no unity of man when it comes to religious denominations. C is the answer to this question. We have mentioned about the details in the paragraph, in the sentence. This piece of information goes beyond the paragraph as well. The answer must be option C. Getting it? Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. It is certain that seditions, wars, and contempt or breach of the laws are not so much to be imputed to the wickedness of the subjects as to the bad state of a dominion. For men are not born fit or fit for citizenship, but must be made so. It means men are not born fit for citizenship, but men must be made fit for citizenship. Besides is a support indicator. It must connect either two positive ideas or two negative ideas. Besides, men's natural passions are everywhere the same. And if wickedness more prevails and more offenses are committed in one commonwealth than in another, it is certain that the former has neither enough pursued the end of unity, nor framed his laws with sufficient forethought, and that therefore it has failed in making quite good its right as a commonwealth. Come to the question. Which among the following is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from the passage given above? This is an inferential question. Our task is to find out an option that finds mention in the paragraph, and as you know, nothing in any option or no detail in any option must go beyond the paragraph. It's unlike an assumption question. Come to A. Seditions, wars, and breach of the laws are inevitable in every dominion. Every is a very general word, right? Every is a very general word. If I say all, always, never, everyone, everybody, everything, someone, somebody, something. The same is the case with no and any. Anyone, anybody, anything. No one, nobody, nothing. Whatever, wherever, whenever, whoever, whomever. All these are general words. Now the rule is this, when it comes to an inferential question. What if what is there in the option is general? What is there in the paragraph must also be general. If what is there in the option is specific, what is in the paragraph must also be specific. It can never be general and specific or specific and general. It must always be general and general or specific and specific. Come to statement 1 once again. Seditions, wars, and breach of the laws are inevitable in every dominion. Every dominion is very general. Such a general term is nowhere in the paragraph. So based on that concept, the concept of general and specific, option A is eliminated. Come to B. It is not the people but the sovereign who is responsible for all the problems of any dominion. Any dominion is also general. Anyone, anybody, anything. Every dominion is general. any domain is also general, such a general term is nowhere, a general usage is nowhere in the paragraph. Option B is also eliminated. Come to option C. The domain is the best which pursues the aim of unity and has laws for good citizenship. The paragraph talks about the aim of unity mentioned. The paragraph talks about laws for good citizenship as well. It says, men are not born fit for citizenship, but must be made so. Must be made so means must be made fit for citizenship. This is completely fine. The aim of unity is also talked about there. The part of the passage. It is certain that the former has neither enough pursued the end of unity, nor framed its laws with sufficient forethought, and that therefore it has failed in making quite good its right as a commonwealth. The domain is the best which pursues the aim of unity and has laws for good citizenship. That means a dominion can be termed as the best dominion if it pursues the aim of unity and has laws for good citizenship. So a dominion that pursues the aim of unity and laws for good citizenship can be termed as the best dominion. This can be inferred from the paragraph. Come to D, leave D, don't get stuck with any option. Come to Delhi. It is impossible for men to establish a good dominion. It is impossible for men to establish a good dominion. It says, men are not born fit for citizenship, but must be made so. That means they can be made fit for good citizenship. We cannot conclude that it is impossible for men to establish a good dominion. D is eliminated. The answer must be option C. Got it? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Inequality is inequality. Inequality violates a basic democratic norm, and which that basic democratic norm is given after the hyphen, the colon, the apposition, right? Inequality violates a basic democratic norm, and which that is given after the hyphen, the equal standing of citizens. This is the one that is getting violated by inequality. Equality is a relation that obtains. Equality is a relation that obtains between persons in respect of some fundamental characteristic that they share in common. Equality is, morally speaking, a default principle. Therefore, persons should not be discriminated on grounds such as race, caste, gender, ethnicity, disability, or class. I told you earlier as well, therefore is a cause and effect indicator connecting a reason and a result. The reason here is this. Equality is, morally speaking, a default principle. Therefore, the result is, persons should not be discriminated, positively charged because of double negation, on grounds such as race, caste, gender, ethnicity, disability, or class. These features means what I mentioned here. These features of human condition are morally irrelevant. The idea that one should treat persons with respect not only because some of these persons possess some special features or talent, for example, skilled cricketers, gifted musicians, or literary giants, but because persons are human beings is by now part of common sense morality. Come to the question. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. So this is an assumption-based question. Come to the options given here. We have 4 statements given. And A, B, C, D, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 4, 3 and 4. Come to 1. Equality is a prerequisite for people to participate in the multiple transactions of society from a position of confidence. I'll read the last sentence once again because we have to assume based on the last sentence. The one that starts with the idea. The idea that one should treat persons with respect not only because some of these persons possess some specific features or talent, for example, skilled cricketers, gifted musicians, or literary giants, but because persons are human beings is by now part of common sense morality, right? This is an example. We have an example given here. I'll read the last but one sentence as well. Persons should not be discriminated on grounds such as race, caste, gender, ethnicity, disability, or class. These features of human condition are morally irrelevant. Come to option A. Equality is a prerequisite for people to participate in the multiple transactions of society from a position of confidence. This can be assumed from this part of the paragraph. Equality is a prerequisite for people to participate in multiple transactions of society from a position of confidence. So from the details given here, we can assume that what equality is. It's a prerequisite for people to participate in multiple transactions. This detail is not given in the paragraph, in this part of the paragraph, or the last but one sentence, or the last sentence. This is what we can assume from the details given here. One must be considered. Based on that, options B and D are eliminated. Come to 2. Occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. Yes, the last part of the passage says this. Occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy, because the last part says, after but, the part that comes after but because, just a minute. The last part here, skilled cricketers, gifted musicians, or literary giants, but because persons are human beings is by now part of common sense morality. Persons are human beings. Come to statement 2. Occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. It is detrimental for the survival of democracy because persons are human beings. They should be treated with equality. So inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. 2 also can be assumed from the details given here, must be considered. Based on that, option C is eliminated. The answer must be option A. We have 2 more statements left. We'll see whether 3 and 4 can be agreed to or not. Come to 3. Equal standing of all citizens is an idea that cannot actually be realized even in a democracy. This detail is not a part. This part of the option is not among the details given in the paragraph. We have to assume based on the information there in the paragraph, 3 can be eliminated. Right to equality should be incorporated into our values and day-to-day political vocabulary. This also can be eliminated because it doesn't talk about the details given here. The answer must be option A, 1 and 2 only. And 1 and 2 are based on the details given in the last sentence. And as an example, we are focused on the last but one sentence as well. Based on the last but one sentence and the last one, 1 and 2 can be agreed to as what can be assumed from the passage. The answer must be option A, 1 and 2 only. Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Aristocratic government ruins itself by limiting too narrowly the circle within which power is confined. Oligarchic government ruins itself by the incautious scramble for immediate wealth. But even democracy ruins itself by excess of democracy. Its basic principle is the equal right of all to hold office and determine public policy. This is, at first glance, a delightful arrangement. It becomes disastrous because the people are not properly equipped by education to select the best rulers and the wisest courses. The people have no understanding and only repeat what their rulers are pleased to tell them. Such a democracy is tyranny or autocracy, says Plato. The question is, Which one of the following best reflects the crux of the passage given above? This is a main idea question, the topic on which most number of details are given by the author, right? Now here, the whole paragraph talks about aristocratic government, how it ruins itself, how democracy ruins itself, how an oligarchic government ruins itself. The whole passage talks about how one entity destroys or ruins itself. That's what the subject matter of the whole passage is. And towards the end it says, the people have no understanding and only repeat what the rulers are pleased to tell them. Such a democracy is tyranny or autocracy. How one of a democracy or one system of government ruins or spoils or destroys itself is what the subject matter of the whole passage is. Come to A. Human societies experiment with different forms of government. The paragraph is not telling us that human societies experiment with different forms of government. It talks about like how excess of something ruins itself. So A can be eliminated. Come to B. Any form of government tends to deteriorate by excess of its basic principle. Yes, any form of government. Here we have a lot of forms talked about. Aristocratic government, oligarchic government, then democratic one, many are talked about here. And when a democracy ruins itself because of excess of democracy, any form of government tend to deteriorate can be termed as ruin, right? The word deteriorates can be related to the word ruins by excess of its basic principle itself, by limiting too narrowly the circle within which people is confined. Oligarchic government ruins itself by the incautious scramble for immediate wealth, and democracy ruins itself by excess of democracy. Because of the excess of the same thing, the entity destroys itself. So any form of government tends to deteriorate by excess of its basic principle. This is what the whole paragraph is about. B must be considered. Leave it. Come to C. Education of all citizens ensures a perfect, functional and sustainable democracy. Educating people or educating the citizens is not a part of the details given in the paragraph. Even if it is a part, it is not the idea explained by the author. C is eliminated. Come to option D. Having a government is a necessary evil because tyranny is inherent in any form of government. This must be eliminated because having a government is a necessary evil is not at all a part of the details there in the paragraph. Eliminated. The answer must be option B. Any form of government tends to deteriorate by excess of its basic principle. Got it? Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. Nothing can exist in a natural state which can be called good or bad by common assent, agreement. Since every man who is in a natural state consults only his own advantage and determines what is good or bad according to his own fancy, and in so far as he has regard for his own advantage alone, and holds himself responsible to no one save himself by any law, and therefore sin cannot be conceived in a natural state, but only in a civil state, which is decreed by common consent what is good or bad, and each one holds himself responsible to the state. The question is, which of the following best reflects the central idea of the passage? The same one, it is a main idea question, right? Now, the whole passage talks about deciding what is right and what is wrong. And nothing can exist in a natural state because nothing can exist in a natural state which can be called good or bad by common assent. There's nothing like everyone together says, or everyone agrees and say that it's good, or everyone agrees and say that it's bad, because a person has got his own way of looking at things, his own ways of deciding what is right and what is wrong. That is what the whole passage is about. Come to A. The conceptions of what is right or what is wrong, what is right or wrong exists due to the formation of a state. Yes, this is the piece of information, or this is the topic on which most number of details are given here, or this is a topic being explained by the author. Leave it there, come to option B. B says, unless a ruling authority decides as to what is right or wrong, no man would be morally right. A man becoming morally right or man being morally right is not explained by the author. B is eliminated. Come to C. Man is inherently immoral and selfish in a natural state. Now the passage talks about deciding what is right and what is wrong. That idea is not a part of option C, eliminated. Come to Delhi. The idea of what is right or wrong is necessary for the survival of human species. Deciding what is right or what is wrong is necessary for human beings to survive is not a part of the paragraph, eliminated. The answer must be option A. The conceptions of what is right or wrong exist due to the formation of a state. And each one holds himself responsible to the state. This is the last sentence. This is what the last sentence tells us. And the whole paragraph talks about a person deciding what is right and what is wrong, depending on his own fancy and all. The answer must be option A. And this is the idea being described by the author in the paragraph. Come to the next question. I'll read the paragraph. In the immediate future, we will see the increasing commodification of many new technologies, and which those new technologies are is given after the hyphen, the apposition. Artificial intelligence and robotics, 3D manufacturing, custom-made biological and pharmaceutical products, lethal autonomous weapons and driverless cars. So these are the new technologies. This will pose conundrums. The moral question of how a driverless car will decide between hitting a jaywalker and swerving and damaging the car has often been debated. The answer to this, the answer is both simple, save the human life, and complex. At which angle should the car swerve? Just enough to save the jaywalker, or more than enough? If the driverless car is in Dublin, who would take the decision? The Irish government, or the car's original code writer in California, or a software programmer in Hyderabad to whom maintenance is outsourced? So who will take the decision in such a case when it comes to a driverless car in Dublin? If different national jurisdictions have different fine print on prioritizing on human life, how will it affect insurance and investment decisions, including transnational ones? Question mark. The author has ended the paragraph with a question mark. That means he expects an answer from the readers. Come to the question. Which of the following statements best reflect the rational, plausible, and practical implications that can be derived from the passage given above? So we asked to find out the most plausible, rational, and practical implications that can be derived from the paragraph. Inferential question. Come to 1. 1 says, too much globalization. We have to find out an option that is given there in the paragraph. Too much globalization is not in the best interest of any country. Any country is general. Inferential question, general, specific, all these must be thought about. No such general term is there in the paragraph. Based on that, 1 is eliminated. So we can eliminate 3 options easily. A is gone, B is gone, D is gone. The answer must be C. Come to 2. Modern technology is increasingly blurring the economic borders. We can infer this. This is implicitly stated in the paragraph. 3. Innovation and capital have impinged on the domain of the state. This is also implicit in the paragraph. Now, sometimes the answer will be explicitly stated, sometimes implicitly given, hidden meaning. 4 says, public policy of every country, public policy of every country should focus on developing its own supply chains. Every country is general. Such a general term is not there. 4 is eliminated. Come to 5. Geopolitics will have to reconcile to many ambiguities and uncertainties. This cannot be derived. Geopolitics will have to, once again, yes. Come to 5. Geopolitics will have to reconcile to many ambiguities and uncertainties. Now, reconciling to many ambiguities and uncertainties are talked about, or is talked about in this part of the passage regarding what decision to take, whether to save a human life, like whether to go and hit a tree, swerve the car in which direction. All these ambiguities and uncertainties that geopolitics will have to reconcile to. 5 also must be agreed. Anyway, we have only one option left. The answer must be option C. Fine. Come to the next paragraph. I'll read the paragraph. The resolution of bankruptcy cases of Indian banks under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code should help bring non-performing assets, NPA, non-performing assets situation under some control. Despite the slow pace of resolutions, despite is a contrast indicator, it must connect to contradicting ideas. One positive idea and one negative idea. Despite the slow pace of resolutions by the National Company Law Tribunal, the court can be helpful in cleaning up bank books in future credit cycles. The recapitalization of public sector banks too can help increase the capital cushion of banks and induce them to lend more and boost economic activity. But bad debt resolution and recapitalization are only a part of the solution, as they by themselves can do very little to rein in reckless lending that has pushed the Indian banking system to its current sorry state. The paragraph is negatively charged. Unless there are systematic reforms that address the problem of unsustainable lending, future credit cycles will continue to stress the banking system. Come to the question: which of the following statements best reflects the most logical, rational, and practical suggestion implied by the passage? This is a question based on a suggestion. I told you this. If it is based on a suggestion, message, or advice, we need to focus on the last part of the passage. That means the option that we go for must find mention in the last part of the passage. To be very precise, the last sentence of the passage, right? I'll read the last sentence of the passage once again. Unless there are systematic reforms, changes, unless there are systematic reforms that address the problem of unsustainable lending, future credit cycles will continue to stress the banking system. That means, if this doesn't happen, future credit cycles will continue to stress the banking system. So if this happens, future credit cycles will not continue to stress the banking system. If this doesn't happen, future credit cycles will continue to stress the banking system. This is what the paragraph says. The last sentence of the passage says. It talks about some changes that have to be done. Right. Come to A. Lending by the banks should be closely monitored and regulated by the central government. B. Interest rates should be kept low so as to induce banks to lend more, promote credit growth, and thereby boost economic activity. Now, interest rates should be kept low is not a part of the details given in the last sentence, in fact. So option B can be eliminated. Now, one more reason to eliminate option B is Should is a modal, M-O-D-L modal. If I say must, should, have to, need to, ought to, has to, had to. All these words tell us about a compulsory action, a responsibility, a duty or an obligation, a compulsory action. If there is a modal in the option, there must be a modal in the sentence that talks about the option. That means like if a sentence talks about, if an option talks about a compulsory action, what is in the passage must also be a compulsory one. There is no compulsory action talked about in the last sentence. The last sentence says, if this doesn't happen, future credit cycles will continue to stress the banking system. No compulsory actions talked about here. There's another reason to eliminate option B. Come to see. Merger of many banks into a few large banks alone is a long-term solution to make them viable and prevent their bad performance. This doesn't talk about, in fact, lending, right? The last sentence talks about lending, so C is eliminated. Come to D. Indian banking system requires structural reforms. Yes, this is a suggestion given by the author. What is required to stop future credit cycles from continuing to stress the banking system? This is what the author tells us. And what has to be done is, reforms that address the problem of unsustainable lending must be checked. There are systematic reforms that address the problem of unsustainable lending. Such reforms must be there to deal with this particular situation. That is what the author tells us. That's a suggestion given by the author or put forward by the author. D says, Indian banking system requires structural reforms as a long-term solution for bad loans problem. So what is required is structural reforms. That is a suggestion given by the author, and that suggestion is talked about only in one option, that is option D. So A is eliminated, the answer must be D. Fine. We have to go for an option that finds mention in the last part, the last sentence of the passage. The next passage. In India, the objective of macroeconomic policy is to enhance the economic welfare of the people, and any one wing of such macro policy, monetary or fiscal, cannot independently work without active support of another. That means if one has to exist or work well, it needs the support of the other, right? Cannot independently work without active support of another. That means if one entity has to work actively, which has to work well, it requires an active support of the other one. The question is, which of the following best reflects the corollary of the passage? Corollary is same as inference. What can be inferred from the paragraph? We need an option that finds mention in the paragraph. Nothing in any option must go beyond the paragraph. Come to 1. The central bank cannot work independently of the government. It says, in India, the objective of macroeconomic policy is to enhance the economic welfare of the people, and any one wing of such macro policy, monetary or fiscal, cannot independently work without active support of another. The central bank cannot independently work of the government. That means it requires the support of another entity. It cannot work independently, must be considered. Leave it. Come to option B. Government should regulate financial markets and institutions closely. Should is a modal, right? It tells about a compulsory action. No modal is there in the paragraph. The paragraph doesn't talk about a compulsory action. If there is a modal in the option, in the case of inferential questions, right? Only in the case of inferential questions, general, specific, comparative degree adjective, superlative degree adjective, modal, fact, doubt, all these matter only in the case of an inferential question. If there is a modal in the option, there must be modal in the paragraph. There is no modal in this paragraph, and the paragraph doesn't talk about a compulsory action as well, so B is gone. Come to C. Market economy is not compatible with the social policies of the government. We are not talking about not being compatible. It says that one cannot exist without the active support of another. That is what the whole paragraph tells us. In fact, it's a single sentence, right? In a single sentence, C is eliminated. Come to D. Financial sector reforms are required for enhancing the economic welfare of the people. It also doesn't talk about one entity not being able to exist without the active support of the other entity. Gone? The answer must be option A. Got it? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. The best universities like Harvard and MIT, despite having the luxury of having some truly excellent teachers on their payroll, are increasingly embracing the flipped classroom format where students listen to video lectures at home and spend class time applying their knowledge, solving problems, discussing examples, etc. Professors guide the discussion and fill in wherever necessary, explaining those bits that seem to be eluding the students and throwing in advanced ideas that happen to be topical. These universities have made their video lectures available free for anyone in the world. They are also encouraging colleges and universities all over the world to integrate online courses into their own pedagogy, picking the pieces that are appropriate for their needs and building a package around them. The whole paragraph talks about the way of approach taken by the institutes or the colleges or universities to educate the children. Come to the question. Which one of the following statements best reflects the central idea of the passage? This is a main idea question. Our task is to find out the topic being described by the author. It means the topic on which most number of details are there in the paragraph. Come to one. And the paragraph talks about the way of educating children, like going for online courses and all. And these universities are encouraging other countries, the universities of other countries to go for the same way of approach. Efficacy of universities would be better in online mode of conducting classroom tuition as compared to conventional method. B. Availability of higher education can be made easy and cheaper without diluting the content. C. We need not invest much in infrastructure related to higher education and yet develop better human and social capital. Nowhere a part of the paragraph, in fact. C is gone. D. Private sector institutions in higher education as well as coaching institutes can take advantage of this opportunity and thrive well. This opportunity refers to providing online classes to students and just filling in the gaps whenever they need help. This opportunity and thrive well, this is what the whole passage is about. Going for online classes, educating the children that way and thriving well, that is what the whole paragraph tells us about. D must be considered. Come to A once again. Efficacy of universities would be better in online mode in conducting classroom tuition as compared to conventional method. We have a comparison brought about here, right? Online mode of conducting classes compared to the conventional method. Such a comparison is not there in the paragraph. If a comparison is brought about between two entities in an option, the same two entities must get compared, or same comparison must be brought about in the paragraph as well. Such a comparison is not brought about here, so A is eliminated. Come to B. Availability of higher education can be made easier and cheaper without diluting the content. Easier is a comparative degree adjective. Cheaper is also a comparative degree adjective. There's no comparison brought about in the paragraph. Based on the same reason, option B is also eliminated. The answer must be option D. Fine. Private sector institutions, higher education as well as coaching institutes can take advantage of this opportunity and thrive well, providing online classes to students. Even though they have well qualified teachers and all, they're providing online classes to students. Clear? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Our cities are extremely vulnerable to climate change because cause and effect indicator, you should connect a reason and a result. This is the result here. Our city is extremely vulnerable to climate change is a result here. The reason is because of large concentration of populations and poor infrastructure. This is the reason. Negative result, negative reason. Because of large concentrations of populations and poor infrastructure. Moreover, support indicator. The idea before moreover is negative. The idea before moreover is negative, so the idea after moreover must also be negative. Moreover, population densities are increasing in them, but we have not yet developed the systems to address climate change impacts, negatively charged. Our cities contribute to 65% of the GDP, but there are not enough facilities to cater to the needs of the people, negative. So our cities contribute to 65% of the GDP, but contrast indicator, the idea before but is positive. Our cities contribute to 65% of the GDP is positive. The idea after but must be negative. But there are not enough facilities to cater to the needs of the people. It is important to address the issues of air quality, transport, etc. that are vital to identifying sustainable solutions. So air quality, transport, all these important or vital to identifying sustainable solutions. We need to involve citizens in city planning. This is a compulsory action. We need to involve citizens. Need to is a model telling us about a compulsory action, a responsibility or a duty. We need to involve citizens in city planning and create an ecosystem that meets the needs of the people. This is what we have to do, right? Which among the following is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from the passage above? We have to find out an option that is there in the paragraph. Come to A. Our cities need to have well-defined administrative setup with sufficient autonomy. Well-defined administrative setup and autonomy are not talked about in the paragraph or not a part of the details given in the paragraph. Option A is eliminated. Come to B. Ever-increasing population densities is a hindrance in efforts to achieve sustainable development. Now there's a mention about increasing population densities. Moreover, population density is increasing in them, but we have not yet developed the systems to address climate change. 2 says, ever-increasing population densities is a hindrance in efforts to achieve sustainable development. Ever-increasing population densities should not be agreed to, because population, the paragraph just says population densities are increasing in, but we don't have proper facilities, right? We have not yet developed the systems to address climate change impacts. So this should not be agreed to. B is eliminated. Come to C. To maintain and develop our cities, we need to adopt sustainability related interventions. Need to is a model. So mention about this option in the paragraph must also be a compulsory one. We to maintain and develop our cities. Come to the last sentence given in the paragraph. It is talked about in the last sentence. We need to involve citizens in city planning and create an ecosystem that meets the needs of the people. To maintain and develop our cities, we need to adopt sustainability related interventions. C must be considered. Leave it there. Come to the last one. Public-private partnership mode of development is a viable long-term solution for the infrastructure and sustainability problems of India. Doesn't find mention in the paragraph. Eliminated. The answer must be option C. Any doubt? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Can a democracy avoid being a welfare state for long? This is a question. Why cannot mass welfare be left entirely to the markets? Another question. There is a built-in tension between markets and democracy. Markets do not work on a one person, one vote principle as democracies do. That means democracies work on a one person, one vote principle, but markets do not work on this principle. What one gets out of the marketplace depends on one's endowments, skills, purchasing power, and the forces of demand and supply. Markets reward individual initiative and skill and may also lift many from the bottom rungs of society. It's a doubt actually, it says may. But some people never get the opportunity to develop skills that markets demand. They are simply too poor and too handicapped, or skill formation takes too long. By creating jobs, markets may be able to help even unskilled people, but capitalism has always witnessed bursts of unemployment. Now, come to the question. With reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. This is an assumption-based question, right? Now, I'll read the last sentence once again. By creating jobs, markets may be able to help even unskilled people, but capitalism has always witnessed bursts of unemployment, right? So in a way, markets may be able to help unskilled people by creating jobs, but it's a contrast indicator. But capitalism has always witnessed bursts of unemployment. Come to one. Modern democracies rely on the market forces to enable them to the welfare stage. This is not based on the details given there in the last sentence. One must be eliminated. Based on that, A is gone, D is also gone. Come to 2. Markets ensure sufficient economic growth necessary for democracies to be effective. This is also not a part of the details given there in the last sentence of the passage. 2 also should not be considered, eliminated. The only option left is option B. Come to B. Government programs are needed for those left behind in economic growth. Come to the last sentence once again. By creating jobs, markets may be able to help even unskilled people. They can be termed as unskilled people, can in a way be termed as those who are left behind. So in option 3, we have mentioned about the last sentence. As I told you, some piece of information, assumption question, some piece of information must go beyond the paragraph as well. Government programs are needed for those Government programs are needed for those who are left behind in economic growth. This is not a part of the details given in the last sentence or given in the paragraph. So this piece of information goes beyond the paragraph. We have a mention about the last sentence as well. 3 must be considered assumption question. The answer must be option B. Got it? Getting it? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. In our schools, we teach our children all that is there to know about physics, math, and history, and what have you. But do we teach them about the bitter caste divide that plagues the country, about the specter of famine that stalks large parts of a land, about gender sensitivity, about the possibility of atheism as a choice, etc. So we teach children about, in schools we teach children about physics, math and all, but we don't educate them regarding the problems that happen in our society. Equally important, do we teach them only to passively receive a wisdom? It's a question in fact. From the cocooned world of school, suddenly the adolescent finds himself or herself in the unfettered world of university. Right? From the cocoon world of school, he goes to the unfettered, no chains, unfettered world of university. Here, he or she is swept up in turmoil of ideas, influences and ideologies, because they come across many ideas, they get influenced by many people, they come across many ideologies, they get many ideas will be given to them by many people. So when they come to university or when they move to college life, they experience all this. For someone who has been discouraged from asking questions and forming an opinion, this transition can be painful. So a person who has not been given a chance to ask questions or to form an opinion, we cannot digest this change very easily. From the school, cocoon's world of school, when it comes to the unfettered world of college life, he may not be able to get adjusted to that situation, right? Which one of the following statements best reflects the central idea of the passage given above? Main idea question, we need to find out the statement or the topic being described by the author, right? You know what it is actually. A says, what we have to educate the children about, and how they must be brought up in school and all this. Come to A. School curriculum is not compatible with expectations of children and parents. The paragraph tells us that when they move to college life from school life, right, they may find it difficult to adjust to the situation if they have not been given a chance to ask a question or frame an opinion. But does not mean that school curriculum is not compatible with expectations of children and parents. In fact, not a part of the details in the paragraph. In fact, A is eliminated. Come to B. Emphasis on academic achievements does give time for development of personality and skills. Emphasis on academic achievements in studies does give time for development of personality and skills. The paragraph says, we educate children about math, physics, chemistry and all, but we don't educate them about the problems that are happening in the society. So emphasis on academic achievements does give time for development of personality skills should not be agreed to. Anyway, this is not the idea being described in the passage. B is eliminated. Come to C. Preparing the children to be better citizens should be the responsibility of the education system. In a way, okay, leave. Come to D. To be a better citizen, the present world order demands societal and life coping skills in addition to academic content. I say these two can be agreed to. If we come across more than one correct option, our task is to go for the better option. If two correct answers means we need to go for the better option. If more than two means we need to go for the best option. Here, I say the better option is D. I'm not saying that C is wrong. But I say the better option is D. Because D talks about the transition that happens in their life and how they find it difficult to adjust to the situation, and what has to be taught or what all have to be taught in school itself. To be a better citizen, the present world order demands societal and life coping skills in addition to academic content. So this is the extra piece of information that is not there in C. And this detail is there in the paragraph, described in the paragraph. So here the better option must be D. Any doubt? Come to the next one. I'll read the paragraph. Medieval merchants risked the hazards of the Silk Road to reach the markets of China. Portuguese caravels in the 15th century sailed beyond the bounds of the known world, searching less for knowledge than for gold and prizes. Historically, the driver for opening frontiers has always been the search for resources. Science and curiosity are weak drivers. The only way to open up space, whether the space of solar system or interstellar space, is to create an economic engine, and that engine is resource extraction. Which of the following best sums up the passage given above? This is also a main idea question. Summary of the passage, theme of the passage, essence of the passage, title of the passage, all these mean the same. Come to the options. A says, wealth generation is a primary motive for any human endeavor. This should not be agreed to. Right? It's too general, in fact, and this is not the idea being described. Space, whether space in smaller system or interstellar space, will govern our future economy. Space governing our future economy is not described by the author. B is also eliminated. Come to C. Human beings are motivated to explore new frontiers principally by economic conditions. Yes, the paragraph says, Medieval merchants risked the hazards of the Silk Road to reach the markets of China. Portugal caravels in the 15th century sailed beyond the bounds of the known world, searching less for knowledge than for gold and spices. This idea being described, in fact, the passage continues the same idea. Science and curiosity are weak drivers. The only way to open up space, whether space of solar system or interstellar space, is to create an economic engine, and that engine is resource extraction. That means the economic engine is resource extraction. So people get motivated when it's economically good. Now come to C. Human beings are motivated to explore new frontiers principally by economic consideration. When it comes to economy, or when it's based on economic terms. When it comes to economic terms, people get motivated to explore things, all they're not. This is what the last part also says, is to create an economic engine, and that engine, the economic engine, is resource extraction. So people get motivated to do some things when it comes to economic terms. C must be considered because that is the idea being described. D says, wealth generation is based on the risk-taking behavior of some men. It cannot be termed as a main idea. Wealth generation is based on the risk-taking behavior of men is okay, because risk-taking behavior is talked about here, because they said medieval merchants risked the hazards of the Silk Road to reach the markets of China and all. But this idea is not explained or described by the author. Risk-taking behavior is just talked about there, not the main idea here. The idea being explained is this one. Human beings are motivated to explore new frontiers principally by economic consideration. When it comes to economic things, when it comes in terms of economic things, they get motivated to explore things. That is the idea being described. The answer must be option C. Come to the next one. Now I'll just read the question because it starts with some dots, blank kind of. The idea which the first part of the passage mentions is. This is what we have to find out. The idea which the first part of the passage mentions. In a paragraph, there must be a flow of ideas. The first sentence must move on to the second to the third to the fourth, etc. Now all the details related to a particular topic must be brought together. Only then we should move on to another topic. If I say I tell you some details about my trip to Kerala, then I tell you some details about my studies. Now after that I should not go back to the details regarding my trip to Kerala. Now whatever details are there regarding my trip to Kerala, all those must be brought or set together. Only then I should move on to another topic, right? So here we are asked to find out the idea which the first part of the passage mentions. We'll just read here. Most people would agree that telling deliberate lies is wrong, except perhaps in certain special situations where more harm will be done by telling the truth. Even the most truthful people probably tell a good many more lies that might be regarded as semantic lies. Their use of words contains some measure of falsehood, more or less deliberate. The options are agreement about telling lies. It's actually talking about telling lies. Disagreement about telling lies. Disagreement about telling the truth. Disagreement about the harm in telling the truth. Now, this sentence started this way. Most people would agree that telling deliberate lies is wrong, right? So this one talks about the second sentence. We have to find out the first sentence, right? Or the idea that has to be used here. This one, the second sentence talks about tells us that most people would agree that telling deliberate lies is wrong. It talks about agreeing that telling deliberate lies is wrong. This, we don't have any contrast indicator here. Right? We don't have any contrast indicator here. So this part must also talk about the same thing. Agreeing that telling deliberate lies is wrong. This must be the answer. Come to option A. Agreement about telling lies. Yes. Agreement about telling lies. This sentence does not start with the contrast indicator. So this part and this sentence must deal with the same idea. Come to B. Disagreement about telling lies. We don't have any context indicator here, so it cannot be disagreement. Option B is eliminated. Disagreement about telling the truth. This part tells us about telling lies, not telling the truth. Eliminated. Disagreement about the harm in telling the truth. It's not telling the truth, it's telling lies. Eliminated. The answer must be option A. Agreement about telling lies. Come to the next one. Which one of the following habits is found more often in good people? From the paragraph, this passage is followed by two questions. A short paragraph followed by two questions. Mixing up the true and false. Which one of the following habits is found more often in good people? That's what the question is. Even the most truthful people probably tell a good many more lies that might be regarded as semantic lies. The use of words contains some measure of falsehood, more or less deliberate. Fine, come to one. Their use of words means the use of words of the most truthful people. Most truthful people probably tell a good many more lies that might be regarded as semantic lies. It's a pronoun antecedent. It's a plural pronoun. It must refer to a plural noun. Their use of words contains some measure of falsehood, more or less deliberate. Deliberate means like purposely done, right? More or less deliberate, purposely done. Come to one. Mixing up the true and false, to some extent okay, but come to B. Intentional, it's not here. Fine, it's okay. You have the metal with you, right? Intentional mixing up of truth with the false. Intentional mixing up. Intentional is something that is deliberately done, right? Intentional mixing up of false with truth. Tell a good many more lies that may be regarded as semantic lies. Their use of words contains some measure of falsehood, more or less deliberate. So intentional mixing up is the same as something that is deliberately done. Intentional mixing up of truth with false. So now when we compare A and B, A is eliminated. It says mixing up to the true and false. C says falsification of facts, not given there in the paragraph, eliminated. D says complete concealment of truth, not given there in the paragraph, regarding good men, truthful men, eliminated. The answer must be option B, intentional mixing up of truth with the false. So as I said, last year we had long passages. That means a long passage followed by 3 or 4 questions. But this year we had only logical reasoning questions. A short paragraph followed by a question. That's it. Next year we don't know how the paper is going to be. So we need to focus on both reading comprehension and logical reasoning. And these two come under verbal logic, reading comprehension and logical reasoning. There are some concepts to be followed. Right? Instead of going for some guesswork, there are some concepts to be followed. You should by heart those concepts and try solving questions based on those concepts, right? And practice by practicing questions with the help of concepts, or trying to solve questions with the help of concepts, we can make ourselves perfect, right? It takes time anyway, time consuming, but slowly, daily you can try solving 1 or 2 passages, 1 or 2 logical reasoning questions. That would be completely fine. Hope what we have discussed is completely fine. What I have gone for is clear. Fine, I'll stop then, right? Thank you.